Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach and I'm going to continue on, even though this is probably 3 days later from my previous one. This is right after I recorded the previous one. And I'm going to continue on with this can be seen by something or other. Can be seen by containing assembly. There should be a can be seen by mock assembly. Okay. And oh yeah, this actually is in a couple of different places because yeah, the type, holy crap. Jeez, this is just everywhere, isn't it? Okay. So, so this is the constructor info extensions. Interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, the root element type is because if you pass it in as a generic or something or other, I can't remember. Yeah. So I thought this would be simpler than jeez. Yes, because in an interface, it's okay if you don't have any constructors, because you can't. In a class, you may have public class, but it may say protected class name with no arguments. Unless I can see that from where I am, because if that's within the assembly that I'm in, where I made the invocation, then I can actually do a public and call it, because I'm subclassing it and I would actually be able to quote unquote see it. If it's, so there's a, I'm glad I did this. Okay. I'm completely babbling. Get mockable constructors. There is also a case here where we need to see if this stuff type to mock type kind is equal to type kind class, and this got constructors count length is equal to 0, we have an issue because we cannot, we need to do this. Type has no accessible constructors. Descriptor. Okay, and so this will be the fourth one. So we'll come back here. Which one is yeah, it's the top one. Okay. So this is 4. The type blah has no constructors that are accessible. Type has no accessible constructors. And so to create this, we just simply do this, we do this, we do this, do this, and do this. Okay. And I should also, did I put that in as a folder? I wonder if I can add existing item. Can I say, oh, you won't. What if I do this? No, you won't. We say exclude. Move. There. Okay. I was hoping that would actually, no, I want you to, I wanted to add actually like just a folder as part of the, so I can get in there, but I'll add that documentation later. As I was saying that and I was like oozing out of my mouth, I'm thinking, how many times have people said that? I'll do documentation later, and then it never happens. Okay. But getting back to this, we now need a test for this. So we need to have a test that says, create when class Yeah, so we're still doing errors here, and then I'm getting into non-error conditions. Okay, create when class has no accessible constructors. Okay, so in this case, we're going to do this. Again, I know this doesn't matter, but if I say, and we got to make it so it's like this, but we need to have a private target type name. Okay, and so in this case, we should see what do we call that? Type has no accessible descriptors. We should see 0 here because we can't see any. Okay. We should still have 3 methods because those are available. We don't have any properties, and now this should fail, and it does because we don't actually, and we still find that as a constructor. Okay, because we need to say, are you actually seen by? Okay. So this is going to be a little tricky. We need to have like explicit can constructor, I think. So let's close everything up at this one. Okay. And then we need to see can be seen by mock assembly. It's unsafe to mock. We're not going to be able to have that condition anymore because we can actually do ones with pointers, even though that's very, very uncommon. We can do that. There's also the parameter types. I'm surprised I didn't catch this here though with that you could actually, I wonder if I'm filtering those out to saying they have to be public or whatever. So the problem here is I need a internal static void bool can constructor be seen by containing assembly. I method this dot I method symbol method self I assembly symbol, and this is where we need the containing assembly invocation. Return false for now. Yes, 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 I know. When we go get all the constructors, we can't yeah. So again, because the constructor could actually be public, but that's not good enough. We also have to see, can the constructor's parameters also be seen? Because you could have a, you know, which doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could have a public constructor where you're defining a type that's internal to the, yeah, I just had a brain meltdown for a second. Like say I say public, like I say internal class A, okay, and then I have a public class B where I have public B A, okay. I think it's going to bark at me. Well, whatever. But B, I think, is different. And can say, yeah, you can't even do this because if you're trying to make this public, then it won't work. This could be internal, okay? And yeah, you're saying A isn't being used, but that's not the problem. It's that these are the same accessibility. So if this was public, then it meant that all of the other things in there are public. Okay. So what kind of rule do I need to put in place here? There's only internal and public types. And so the thing is that if this is internal, then either I'm in the same assembly, the invocation's in the same assembly that this type is being defined in, or the internal visible attribute exists. Okay. So here we need to say if self.containing assembly equals containing assembly of invocation, assembly point compare, default, then we return true. Okay, because then you can see it. Else, if now we need to look and see, because it doesn't matter if you're in the same one. Well, okay. If self accessibility equals public, then we return true. I'm just kind of doing all the case. I mean, that's, if it's public, it's public. And if it's public, then we have to have all the types that are being passed into it being accessible as well. You can't, like we just saw, if you make it internal, it wouldn't work. Okay. So if it's accessible, then yes. Else, if, now in this case, if self.declared accessibility is equal to accessibility.internal, and if, we're going to pull this up in here. Okay. So now we have the case where it's either public or internal. Okay. If it's protected, or self.declared accessibility is equal to protected. Now, the being in the same assembly rule only matters if it's internal. If it's protected, all protected is, and yeah, there's this protected or family bullcrap. I just realized, again, down the hole. Let's make sure it's not an event horizon. So if it's protected, if self.declared accessibility is equal to accessibility internal, and that's okay. Okay. Or you need to say, does internals visible exist in the containing assembly, and the name is equal to the same name of the containing assembly of invocation. Because reasons. Okay. Now, if it's protected, then I think we need to check the parameters, maybe, possibly. I'm not sure. Do you? Do you care? Because again, we have to have a constructor built on the mock type. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. We need to have a constructor built on the mock type where we can pass in, like I think the expectations, and then the list of parameters, and then we call the base constructor, taking those parameters, and then we capture the expectation thingamajig that we have. Okay. So down the rabbit hole we go. What is that? Is that like protected internal? Protected internal. And then in this case, it's going to say, yes, because you can do this. This again has to become public. Okay. And then it works. The reason why is because protected, this is saying protected and internal. Okay. Isn't there private protected or something? Protected. Okay. In that case, what is the rule around this? I forget. I totally forget. And in that case, it's also, I have to look up the rule for that one, because there is a, you can say protected internal, you can say private protected. So there is public, internal, internal protected and private protected. Okay. So I think we should handle all these cases. And yeah, I was just thinking, you could use a switch. You could use a pattern matching thing. And I'm like, oh, dear God, no, because the cases between all these start getting really complicated. And I don't think we could handle it as an expression. So I should say, we could do it. I think this is where a traditional switch statement still matters, because you can't really pull it out of into a pattern syntax because it's just too complicated. Or we can just leave it as an if. Yeah, so we'll have something down here that says else return false. Okay, and maybe at some point it'll be smart. Else if so. So we'll have, let's do this. Okay, and then we're going to say else if self declared accessibility is equal to public internal. Oh, we also need protected. Yes. Protected. Because that matters. Does it? If it's protected, I think we just saw that you can't do that. Yes, because, So if it's truly just protected, it's almost the same as public for us, because all we need to do is subclass it. We have to be able to see all the types. So that's good. So we could say here, this is also self is public, or self declared accessibility is equal to accessibility protected. You will automatically work. Okay. So we've handled those two cases. Okay. Now the case of internal. Do they have protected and friend and internal, protected or friend, protected or internal? Yeah, that really doesn't help. There's no private protected. What do these map to? Yeah, you really don't want to. I'll have to look that up, and because there has to be a mapping to those. Okay, so if it's internal, then if the containing assembly is the same one, and we don't care about looking at types that are defined as those things, because they're either internal or they're public. And if it's internal, if we are in the same assembly, then yes, we'd be able to see the same types, I believe. So that's, I think we just say here, return self, whoa, is equal to that. Okay. So that takes care of internal. But there are these internal protected and private protected. I'm going to do C# internal protected. Internal protected program. Yeah, real. Thank you. Protected internal. Protected internal gives a member access modifier. So if you're assembly or from types that are derived from containing. So. See the C language? No, I don't want to. They really. Excuse me. Security concerns. What about private protected? Yeah. The member access modifier. Private protected member is accessible by types derived from the containing class, but only within its containing assembly. Protected internal member is accessible from the current assembly or from types that are derived by the containing class. Oh, that's right. Right. So let's see if I get this right. This is saying that you can derive from it. It can be accessible if you are within the same, if you're in the same assembly, or you're just deriving from it. So you can be outside of the assembly, and as long as you're deriving from it, which is our case, we're good. Okay. Private protected is saying you can derive from it, but only within the containing assembly. So private protected would actually not work for us because we are not in the same assembly. And I do not believe that, I believe in this case, this doesn't matter with internals visible to, because this is not internals. Okay. So I think in this case, I have to check if you have internals visible to privileges. So we need to do to-do check internals visible to here. Protected internal, we do also have to check. But then we don't have to check the actual other case. The only problem is what is internal protected mapped to? Or self.declared accessibility is equal to accessibility. Is it protected or internal, or protected and internal? I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm going to stop the episode right here because I'm going to have to do some searches to say, which one is this? It's funny because there's no private protected. Like, what's the difference between friend and internal? You know, and this is funny because this is the API for C# Roslyn. You know, unless this is at a level where, yeah, it's just in code analysis. So it's not within C# proper per se. Okay. So I'm going to leave this error here for now, but I'm getting hungry. So I'm going to eat some lunch, and hopefully it gets warm enough today to do a bike ride. But yeah, this is where things get fun because, yeah, they just get fun because of reasons. And I have to, figure, ooh, I got distracted. Oh, nothing of, I was hoping there'd be a new version of this. So maybe I can start seeing things when I hit the dot and IntelliSense with source generators and we can look at stuff. So the next episode, I'm going to have to just do the attribute search on the self method symbols containing assembly and see if it has an internals visible attribute where the value is equal to the containing assembly of invocations name. And that might be hard because, again, we're at the, like if I say internals visible to, well, I have to pass in the assembly name, but then, oh dear God. So if I say A, fine, whatever. This property is not implemented. Fine, but at least you have to pass in a string and it has to be some value. Now you could pass in a constant here, right? Because I could say, you jerk, I could say public const string A, which is equal to A. Okay. And then I could pass into here. I could say, oh, you know what? Yeah. This is going to be A. Yeah. Jerk. Except this doesn't work here, does it? Assembly declarations. That's right. So we have to go up here. And we got to say assembly. And then all as well. But where's that from? That's from iMethod symbol. You jerk. But you can't see that because you're public static class A. Public const string B is equal to B. How about this? A dot B. Oh, you A dot B. You don't like that. Why don't you like that? The name A does not exist in the current context. What? It's a AAA. Come on. You know what the... You can't... Why am I blanking on this? You should be able to say internals visible to that. Or can you? It needs to take a string. Okay. Could I say name of B? Do you know what B is? No, you don't. Name of internals visible to attribute? Can you do it? Yes, you can do that. Okay, so then I have to say, well, what's being passed in here may not be it has to be a constant value. It has to be something that is a string and that can be figured out at compile time. But within the compiler API, I'm not going to know what this is, arguably. I'm going to, unless if I'm at the symbol level and I look at the attribute data, it might have already figured out that this is going to be equal to something. So maybe it won't be that hard. I'm babbling right now, but I do need to put in here, I do need to first figure out what this is, internal protected. And then I also need to check in this case. Otherwise, I think then I've got all the cases handled. So I will do that in the next episode. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.